All right. The time has come. My favorite segment is here. I'm putting Reggie on the hot seat, covering all the latest hot topics in Minnesota sports, called What Does It Mean? Reggie, are you ready?
Let's do it.
So, first up, the Minnesota Twins came out recently and stated the new goal and plan moving forward for Byron Buxton is to have him healthy for, quote, 100 games or so.
All right.
Saying if they can keep him healthy and fresh, he can be one of the best players in the entire Major League Baseball. What does it mean for Buxton and the Twins front office next offseason when trying to come to a long-term extension, knowing you're paying top dollar for a guy that's playing less than 2/3 of the schedule play at best? And just side note, what does it mean for the fans' frustration saying, wait a minute, your plan is to really just lower the bar for Buxton? A lot of different topics swirling around Byron Buxton and the Twins' latest game plan to kind of slow him down a little bit.
It's load management. It's like Kawhi Leonard, Tim Duncan, the Spurs and Greg Popovich. You sit them in the second of a back-to-back. You sit them. It's all about preservation with Buck, because you see that sometimes he just can't help himself. Did you see that play yesterday when he was trying to make a play in the outfield and he goes
yes,
leg first into and it was just like you're clutching your pearls because you're just like, oh my gosh, did he just hurt himself? And luckily he was okay and he was able to just stay in the game and he hit a home run and all that, and it was great. But the dude is just a walking hazard sometimes. And so I think what the Twins are doing is trying to protect him from himself. Before the season started, they signed him to a 7-year, $100 million deal. Okay? They want to see him out there. And if he's going to do, the first time he got hurt this season, he was doing a routine thing, sliding into second base, and he hurt himself. It's just weird with him in that regard. But you want to see him out there. And I think fans should temper themselves, because I know he's an electric player. When he's out there, he's producing at a high level and you want to see him as much as possible. But what I think you've seen is that him playing often means that he's going to be dealing with some nagging injuries. He's going to be dealing with some injuries that may cost him some games. And I think if they're going to just have him on load management, there are 162 games in the season. If you're saying that he's going to play 100 and then, you guys are in playoff contention and you guys have him for the playoff stretch, I think you take that 10 times out of 10. So I think they have shown that they have a little bit of the depth to be able to rest him, every so often and still be able to win these games like they should. They got, Gary Sanchez. I think his bat is maybe starting to wake up a little bit. You got, Carlos Correa going to be coming back, and he's expected to be a key force for that lineup. And so I think you have the weaponry to be able to overcome those few games that you do not have Buck. But then when he's out there, you're seeing he's producing like you haven't seen before. And so I think that's fine with me. I'm good with the load management as long as it preserves him throughout the whole season.
Buxton's only played 100 or more games in one of his 8 seasons. And even the last 5 seasons, the most he's ever played in the last 5 seasons is 87 games. So no question, the Twins are such a better team with him than without. In fact, this year they're 15-8 when he plays. They're 5-7 when he doesn't. The percentage since 2017, they win 59% of their games with him in the lineup. Nearly a 600% winning percentage. Unbelievable. 46% when he's not in the lineup. But clearly, something needed to change. A new approach needed to take place with the Twins training staff, the front office, the coaching, everybody, and say, all right, it's been too long. It's been too much. Yeah. We got to change the game plan and mindset about who and what this guy is.
And what's interesting, too, is, he signed the 7-year, $100 million deal before the season. But, that's a bargain considering the production that this guy has. They got him for a bargain. If he's healthy, he's pushing well over 250.
Not a question. Yeah.
He's a $200+ million player if he's healthy. And they know that. And so like they're kind of getting them for a bargain, but it's just kind of like, look, you're being paid for your service. And so that's the thing. And so look, if you got to preserve them, but that helps keep them out there. And that's what I think continues to electrify fans.
I don't know if you saw this one. The Cincinnati Reds
pitch
a no-hitter. They don't allow one hit and find a way to lose 1-0 to the Pirates. The Pirates scored their one and only run after 3 walks in the 8th and scoring on a ground out. And there's your ball game. What does it mean when analyzing this loss to some of the worst losses in MLB history? And now it's becoming a lost season for the Reds.
So, I used to cover the Reds the last 4 years, and I was there for probably some of the best seasons that they've had in a while. It was just a couple seasons, but what's interesting is they have kind of put their season into the tank. And what is tough is, they have elevated Hunter Green to the starting rotation. And what's tough for a young player like that is you're going up and you're taking your lumps. And what you've seen, I think it was 118 pitches through 7 1/3. And they asked him after, I'm going to pull it up, people are saying, Hunter Green is going to be great. Embarrassing, sure. This is from The Athletic. Embarrassing, sure. But after the chuckles pass, Hunter Green's dominance is what really matters in the Reds' no-hit loss. Hunter Green no-hit the Pirates in his time in the game yesterday. And that was exciting. That let the Reds know that your future is bright. But what you don't want to do is squander a talent like this. And he's pitching these games like this to no win. Like, you pitch good enough like that, you should have a win under your belt. And he doesn't. And I think the Reds are doing him a disservice. I think they're trying to help themselves, when they put him out there, to try to win, but they're not. That's pretty embarrassing when you talk about a 1-0 loss and you don't even allow a hit for the other team. Like, you can't get this guy not a 1 run, like not any run support after he goes out and does that for you. And he was gassed. He was tired. He gave it all that he had. This guy had Tommy John surgery. He throws over 100 miles an hour. Like, and you're not even able to get him a run on the board like that against the Pirates.
Yeah,
like against the Pirates. Like, are you? What is going on? Like, it's crazy because like the Reds have picked it up a little bit over the last few weeks. They haven't been as terrible, and that's been kind of encouraging from a Cincinnati fan standpoint. But no more demoralizing than something like that, and no more evident than the state of the franchise at this point that something like that happens.
Stats sometimes lie. They don't always tell the whole story for sure. But these guys make their living off their wins and losses, their ERA, their WHIP, right? And when he goes and tries to sign that big monster contract, and you're looking at it and say, well, you didn't have a ton of wins. That's not my fault, man. That's unfair for how
that's like
well
Jacob
he's
deGrom
performing.
with the Mets.
Yes, exactly. Yep. It's just not fair, and you're doing him a huge disservice when it comes time again for him to get paid, which he should. 162 games are played. If you can pull out one game and just show a synopsis of the Red season, you got to pull out this game and say, this is basically all you need to know is our season, basically in a nutshell, came down to games like these. You lose 1-0 and don't allow a hit. Unbelievable. Last one. What does it mean with Reggie? With the draft now concluded, ESPN's latest insider article breaks down every NFL team's biggest roster weakness still remaining. For the Vikings, Derek Clausen highlighted the tight end position being the team's biggest soft spot, with Irv Smith Jr.'s injury concerns and lack of depth behind him. What does it mean for the amount of pressure now on Irv Smith after failing to address the position early in the draft? And just how much trouble is the offense in if and when Smith loses significant time again with another injury?
So you look at where Kevin O'Connell came from, and he had Tyler Higbee, and they pretty much use the tight ends pretty productively with the Rams, and so I think what is cool for Irv Smith is if he can stay healthy, like he should have a pretty big year. Where they don't have that luxury anymore is if Irv Smith goes down, they don't have a guy like Tyler Conklin to be able to go out there and produce at a similar level. Like Tyler Conklin was a luxury last year. They don't have him anymore. I'm looking at their depth, and you're looking at guys like Ben Ellefson, who really hasn't played. They signed Johnny Munt, who, came over from the Rams, but I think he's more so like a blocking tight end. Last year he had 1 reception for 9 yards. I don't know if you're counting on anyone outside of Irv Smith, because like all the other guys are largely unproven. What I think you're going to see is a lot of multiple receiver sets and, spreading it out to those guys. And maybe you don't have, multiple tight end sets, and maybe you kind of, make up for the lack of tight end depth, with that. But what I will pose, there's a guy who's just been kind of hanging out at different sporting events. Just been kind of seeing him around.
You're not. Oh,
here or
are
there.
You saying what I think you're saying?
And his name is Kyle Rudolph.
Ooh.
And he's available. And he knows Minnesota. He knows the Vikings. And he's still a productive player. And so I think that if they can't do anything with Irv as far as like getting depth behind him, there's a guy who maybe you can try to come to some sort of deal with, maybe during training camp or something like that, to get him into the fold. And I think he will be open to that. And so maybe, what kind of depth would that add? A guy like Kyle Rudolph, bringing him into the fold to kind of not even spell, but to complement Irv Smith, because really too, without Irv, like they don't have a lot of veteran depth either.
They got nobody
in the tight end room. And so that is something that is intriguing. And I've been thinking about that for a while, especially as I continue to see Kyle Rudolph. He's been at Wild games. He was at the Timberwolves playoff games. Like, you're just like, what's Kyle doing hanging out with us, okay, all right, I see.
I know he's got still got a home here in Minnesota. He was drafted by the Vikings in the 2nd round in 2012, spent his whole career here besides the last 2-year stint with the Giants. He's not one of these guys that hopped around the journeyman from, 7 to 8 to 9 different teams. He is a Minnesota Viking at heart, and he'll tell you the same thing. He played the last 2 years because of salary cap and things like that in New York, but you mentioned it. He's been hanging around Minnesota all offseason. He's still got the home. He raised his family here, his wife and kids. There's a serious connection. He's got deep roots in the community, tons of big community service guy. At minimum, they need depth, if not a starter. And I think when you look at maybe what O'Connell wants to do, we know he's going to run the 11 personnel a lot more, which means more receivers. If Irv Smith's not out there, there's other options. I mean, you can go more receivers. You can split out some of these running backs as well. All of a sudden, there's a stable of 4 great running backs the Vikings have after they drafted Ty Chandler from North Carolina. You got Kene Nwangu, special teams ace. He blew up last year, not to mention your starters, Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison. So there's other options outside of Irv in the passing game. Kevin O'Connell will get creative, but when it comes to just tight end depth, flat out, if Irv Smith goes down, you're in trouble, because teams will find ways to create mismatches and force you when they know you have no threat. There's no post threat at all at tight end. So bringing in Kyle Rudolph, wow, what a great idea. Hadn't thought about that yet, but you're right. You connect the dots, man. He's been hanging around Minnesota. I'm sure he would love to spend his last year or two in the NFL back in purple in Minnesota. We'll have to keep tabs on that.
You look at some of the other available options too. Is not a bad crop of guys. Tyler Kroft, Eric Ebron, Blake Jarwin, Jimmy Graham, actually all still available.
Rob
at the tight end.
Let's go. Bring him home. No, we're done with it. We're not doing that.
He was here. He was here last week, but at Hopkins, but for a different thing. He was doing basketball stuff last week. Okay. But yeah, I think if he comes back at all, it'll be with the Bucks again with this guy Tommy.
No doubt.
Yeah, he might be done. He might not, but I can't see him coming to Minnesota. No
chance. But again, though, a handful of good options there. They did use a late round flyer, I think a 5th or 6th round pick last year on SMU tight end Zach Davidson. Raw, but man, he's got that Gronk size, 6'7", and can run with some speed. So
they have plans for him.
But again, though, in this offense, they're not utilize the tight end a ton. But when you do, you need somebody there. And if Irv Smith's not healthy, boy, they could be in some big trouble.